Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rebecca and you should totally subscribe. Alright, so this week's video has actually been requested a few times, and that is how I edit my Instagram photos. So if you aren't following me on Instagram, you totally should. My username is @RebeccaGraceOfficial. So basically today I'm going to be showing you guys how I edit my Instagram photos using VSCO, Lightroom, and Facetune. But before we get started, make sure you give this video a thumbs up at the end if you enjoyed it, subscribe down below, and turn on the bell notifications so that you get notified every time I post a brand new video. With that said, let's get started. Okay, so like I said, the three apps that I use to edit my photos are VSCO, Adobe Lightroom, and Facetune. Facetune on the rare occurrence where I need to touch up something in the photo. One thing that I do want to mention is that I do have a VSCO premium subscription, or whatever it's called. So the main filter that I use to edit my photos is with the paid version of VSCO, but if you do have the free version of VSCO, I will be showing you guys which filter I like to use that comes with the free version that I used to use when I didn't have the full version. Alright, so let's start off with the first photo where I'm just going to be using VSCO to edit it. Okay, so now that I'm in VSCO, I have the three photos that I'm going to be showing you guys how I would edit them today. So let's start off with this first one, which is the one on the left. I'm just going to click on it and then press edit. So in here there is a favorites tab, and that's where I have all the filters that are my favorite. So these are all my favorite filters. I'm just going to scroll through so you guys can see. But the one that I do use the most is G6. So this filter doesn't come with the free version of VSCO, but if you do have the paid version, then this is the filter that I use to edit basically all my Instagram photos. So for this preset, I'm using the filter G6, and it is up all the way at +12. And then I have the exposure set to -0.5. So this I will play around with if I need to, but I usually like to keep it on the negative side to make it a bit darker. So now we have saturation, and this is another one that I will also play around with depending on the photo. But I do have it set as +3 because that's usually around the number that I like to keep it at. But I think I'm gonna bring it down a little bit for this photo, so let's just bring it to +2. And then next we go into the tone section, and this is where I have the highlights and shadows adjusted. So first we have highlights, which I have bumped up to 3.0 because I do like the way it makes it look smoother and cleaner and everything like that. So that I'm gonna leave alone. And then we have shadows, and this is also another one that I usually play around with. I have it set to 1.5 because that's usually what I like to keep it at. So I'll kind of just play around with this and see how I like it. I think I'm gonna bring it down a little bit just to +1 instead of +1.5. And then we go into white balance. So in here we have temperature and tint. I usually like to bring the temperature down a little bit so there's more of a blue tone, but that you can also play around with. So I do have it set to -0.4, and then we have tint, and this I like to bring up a bit because I like my photos to have a more bluish, purple, cooler tone tint. So that's why the temperature is down and the tint is up, but it's only up a little bit. It's only at +0.1. And then the very last thing that I like to set is the HSL. So if I go into here, I keep the red the same. I do play around with the orange. So I bring the orange saturation up to +0.2, and then I bring the lightness down to -0.5. And then depending on how orange it makes me look, I'll adjust it. But I honestly think it's looking okay right now, so I'm going to keep it at that. And then that's how this photo ends up looking like. So that is basically the main filter and presets that I like to use to edit basically all of my Instagram photos. So if you like the way my Instagram feed looks, definitely use the filter G6. I really like that filter, and I find that it goes well with really any style of photo that I take. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the second way that I like to edit my photos, and this is first using Adobe Lightroom. So I have the free version of Adobe Lightroom, but there's also a full paid version that you can get, but everything that I use to edit my photos with comes with the free version. So now that I'm in Lightroom, I'm going to show you guys how I would edit this photo. So sometimes what I like to do before editing a photo in VSCO is I like to bring it into Lightroom and use the auto feature. So what this feature does is it actually fixes anything that it thinks needs to be fixed. So as you can see, it turned up the shadows a little bit and enhanced the colors a little bit more. This is the before, and then this is the after. So I actually really like what it did to this photo. And what I would do is, if I didn't like everything that the auto feature did, is I would go ahead and play around with the light section and the exposure and the shadows and even the saturation. But honestly, simply clicking the auto feature made the photo exactly how I wanted it to look. And honestly guys, that's rare. I love it when that happens, when I can literally just click the auto button and it does exactly what I need it to do. So now what I'm going to do is save this to my camera roll and then open it up in VSCO. Alright, so now that I've opened up this photo in VSCO, I'm actually going to use a filter that's not the G6 filter because I want to show you guys how I would edit this photo using the C1 filter, which is one of my favorite filters that comes with the free version of VSCO. So I'm going to go ahead and find the C1 filter, and there we go. So this filter is actually the one that I used to use for all my photos before I got the paid version of VSCO. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and turn this down a little bit, probably to around 8. Next, what I'm going to do is bump up the shadows a little bit, and what shadows does is it brings the darker parts of the photo and makes them brighter without making the entire photo brighter. So if I turn this up a little bit, I think I'm going to bring it to around 2, just like that. And now what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring the exposure down a little bit, probably to around literally just negative 0.2, I think is good. Actually, I think I'm only going to do it to negative 0.1. So now what I'll do is go to the saturation, and I'm going to bring that up a little bit, probably to about plus 0.3. And now I can see that there's a lot of like red on my face, so I'm going to go to the HSL. And by the way, the HSL feature doesn't come, I believe it doesn't come with the free version of VSCO, but that's totally okay because a lot of what I'm about to do with this feature you can actually do in the free version of Lightroom. So what I'm going to do is turn the red saturation down a little bit, and you can see that really brings the red off of my face. So I'm thinking I'm going to bring that down to negative 1.0. And I'm honestly liking how this looks right now, but I wanted to show you guys one more feature that I would use if I felt that I needed to, and that is the split tone feature. So with this feature, you can add a shadow tint, so you can make it look red or orange, yellow, green, blue, or purple. So I think the blue is pretty cool, but I'm not going to be using it for this photo specifically. And then what you can also do is add a highlights tint, and that kind of makes the background the tint color that you want rather than the object in front. So that's some way that I could play around with if I had a specific kind of photo for it. Honestly, I'm kind of liking how this magenta looks. It looks pretty cool. It gives it like a purple tone, which I think would be cool. And using this feature would be a really great way to have an Instagram feed. Like you can make all your photos look the same color, which would be really cool. So since I do like the idea of a purple tone theme, I am going to turn this magenta one up a little bit, probably to around plus 3.0, I think would be good. And that's basically how I would edit this photo. I think this photo looks super great, and once again, this is using the C1 filter, which does come with the free version of VSCO, so I do definitely recommend using this filter if you have the free version. Alright, so lastly, I'm going to show you guys how I would use the app called Facetune if I needed to do certain touch-ups to any of my photos. So this is an app that I don't use for editing filters onto my photos. I use this to do a touch-up. So that could be getting rid of a mark on my face or smoothing my skin. You can even whiten your teeth with this photo. You can do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But one thing that I would sometimes do is go to the retouch section down here and go over to the smooth tool, and you can actually zoom in, which is really nice. And this little mark on my forehead right here, I will try to get rid of. So what you can do with the smooth tool is just kind of color over that mark, and you can see it kind of tones it down a bit, makes it less noticeable, which is really nice if you want your skin to look super clear. Another thing that you can do is actually smooth out your entire face, which you have to be careful when you're doing this kind of stuff because it can make your photos or your face look really fake. So that's a little warning. But sometimes it's nice for just a specific spot that you want to cover up. And the nice thing is that you can also turn it down a little bit. So as you can see, this is at 100, but if I wanted to turn it down and make it look more noticeable, you could turn it down and you can go all the way from 100 to 0, so that's really nice. Another thing that you can do with this app is you can whiten your teeth, which obviously you don't want to do that too much once again, but if you feel like you need to or you want to, or you're even just doing it for fun, then you could totally use this feature. So if you wanted to, you could just zoom in and then color over it and whiten your teeth like that. Obviously you can't really see my teeth that much in this photo, but you get the point. And then another tool that I like to use in this app sometimes is in the retouch section, and then if you scroll down you can see this option that says matte. So basically this is one that I will use often because I will often appear pretty shiny in photos. So if you want to get rid of some shine on your face, you can go to this matte tool and zoom in and get rid of some shine on your forehead or your nose or wherever you feel like you look shiny. And then another tool that I will sometimes use is all the way at the end, and it is called the defocus tool. So basically what this does is it can blur out the background of your photos. So this is really cool to edit your YouTube thumbnails with, which is what I personally do sometimes, where the object will be in focus but the background will be blurred. So if you go ahead and click on this defocus tool, there's actually an auto option, and basically what that will do is blur out your background. So obviously it's hard to tell with this photo because there's nothing really in the background of this photo except for my white wall. But this feature is really cool because that is what it'll do to the background, and then you can even use this eraser tool to get rid of some spots that you think shouldn't be blurred. So basically those are the 3 ways that I will edit my Instagram photos using the app VSCO, Adobe Lightroom, and Facetune. And hopefully that helped you guys out or gave you some ideas on how to edit your photos. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up down below, subscribe to my channel, and turn on bell notifications so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Feel free to check out my other tech-related videos right here in the eye. I upload every single Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so I will see you guys back here next week for a brand new video. Bye!